What if Reacher finally finds the clue he has been looking for, only to discover that the truth is far more dangerous than he expected? Episode 4 could be the moment when the entire investigation changes direction. One small discovery can connect several hidden pieces, and once Reacher sees the pattern, there may be no going back. But the biggest question is not just what Reacher finds. It is who is watching him while he gets closer to the truth. Reacher Season 4 Episode 4 pushes the story into a much more dangerous stage. Up to this point, Reacher has been trying to understand what is really happening behind the case in front of him. He does not trust easy answers, and that is exactly what makes him dangerous to the people hiding the truth. Every time someone gives him a simple explanation, Reacher looks deeper. In Episode 4, that habit becomes more important than ever because the clues begin to point towards something much bigger. The episode opens the door to a new level of danger. Reacher is no longer simply following a trail. He is starting to understand that the trail may have been created to lead him somewhere. That changes everything. When Reacher notices that certain events do not make sense, he begins putting the pieces together. A person who seemed unimportant suddenly becomes more important. A detail that looked like a small part of the case starts to feel like a warning. Reacher knows that people do not make mistakes this often without a reason. What makes the situation even more tense is that Reacher is not the only person looking for answers. Someone else appears to be working behind the scenes, staying out of sight while the investigation moves forward. Reacher can feel that pressure, even when he cannot see where it is coming from. This is where the episode becomes more than a normal investigation. It becomes a game of patience. Reacher has to decide when to move, when to wait, and who he can actually trust, and Reacher does what he always does best. Instead of rushing into the fight, he watches. He listens. He studies the people around him and pays attention to the details everyone else ignores. The more he learns, the clearer it becomes that the danger is getting closer. Then comes the clue that could change the entire investigation. It may look small at first, but Reacher immediately understands that it matters. The clue connects the present situation to something that happened earlier, creating a link that should not exist. Suddenly, the case has a different shape. Reacher now has a choice. He can continue following the obvious path, or he can take the riskier road and follow the clue that could expose the real truth. And knowing Reacher, there is only one choice he is going to make. The problem is that once he follows that path, he may be walking directly into the trap waiting for him. Reacher thought he was getting closer to the answer. But Episode 4 takes the investigation in a direction he did not expect. The deeper he looks, the more he realizes that the people involved are hiding more than one secret. What first appeared to be a single problem now looks like part of a much larger plan. And the most dangerous part is that Reacher may already be inside it. The new clue gives Reacher a reason to question everything he has learned so far. Instead of accepting what is placed in front of him, he starts going back over the smallest details. Who was there? Who had something to gain? Why did certain events happen at exactly the right time? These questions may seem simple, but Reacher knows that the smallest detail can expose the biggest lie. What makes this moment so important is the way Reacher reacts. He does not panic, and he does not show his enemies that he has figured something out. He keeps his face calm while his mind is already working. He understands that revealing too much could put him in even greater danger. So instead of making a loud move, he decides to let the people around him believe that they are still in control. But there is another problem. The closer Reacher gets to the truth, the harder it becomes to know who can be trusted. Someone who appeared to be helping may have another reason for being involved. Another person may know more than they are willing to admit. Reacher starts watching their actions instead of listening to their words. And that is when the tension really starts to build. The episode also gives us a better look at the pressure surrounding Reacher. He is not simply fighting one enemy. He is dealing with a situation where several people may have different goals, and those goals could eventually crash into each other. That creates a dangerous situation because Reacher cannot predict who will make the first move. Then Reacher notices something that changes his entire approach. A small connection between two events suddenly makes sense. What looked like a coincidence may actually have been planned. If Reacher is right, then someone has been controlling the situation from much closer than he thought. This is where Episode 4 becomes a major turning point. Reacher is no longer searching for just one answer. He is searching for the person who has been hiding the real story. And once that person realizes Reacher is getting close, the investigation could turn into a fight for survival. The biggest question now is simple. Did Reacher discover the truth before his enemy was ready for him to find it? Or did someone intentionally leave the clue behind because they wanted Reacher to follow it? Either way, Reacher is moving toward a confrontation that could change everything. The most dangerous moment in episode 4 may not be the moment when Reacher gets attacked. It may be the moment when he finally realizes that the answer has been sitting in front of him all along. A detail that seemed useless suddenly becomes the missing piece, and Reacher understands that the story he has been told cannot be the full truth. Instead of looking at the case as a straight line, Reacher starts connecting events from different points in the investigation. One decision leads to another. One person appears in more than one place. One piece of information seems to fit a little too perfectly. For Reacher, that is enough to raise a red flag. He knows real mistakes can happen, but when too many things line up, there is usually someone behind them. The biggest twist comes from the way the characters around Reacher begin acting. Their words may sound normal, but their behavior tells a different story. Someone becomes nervous at the wrong moment. Someone avoids a simple question. Another person suddenly changes their plan. Reacher notices all of it. He does not need someone to confess because their actions are already giving him answers. This also changes the way we look at the earlier parts of the season. Scenes that seemed like simple setup may now have a deeper meaning. Certain conversations may have been warnings. Certain choices may have been made to push Reacher toward a specific location or person. Episode 4 makes viewers question whether Reacher has been chasing the case or whether the case has been leading him exactly where someone wants him to go. But Reacher is not easily controlled. Once he understands that there may be a trap, he changes his strategy. He stops giving people the information they expect from him. He keeps his next move hidden and starts testing the people around him. The goal is no longer just to find the truth. The goal is to find out who reacts when the truth gets close. That is what makes the episode so tense. Reacher may have discovered something powerful, but having the truth and proving it are two different things. If he moves too quickly, the person behind the plan could disappear. If he waits too long, someone else could get hurt, and there is another layer to the twist. The person Reacher expects to be the biggest threat may not be the person truly controlling events. There could be someone higher up, someone who has stayed completely out of sight, while others take the risks. Be why the end of this part of the story. Reacher has more questions than answers, but one thing is clear. The case is no longer what it appeared to be. Someone has been hiding the real game, and Reacher has finally started to see the board. Now, the danger is not simply about finding the enemy. It is about finding the enemy before the enemy realizes that Reacher already knows too much. The moment Reacher stops asking questions and starts making his own plan, the entire situation changes. He now knows that waiting for the enemy to make a mistake is not enough. Someone is hiding the truth. Someone is watching the investigation. And Reacher understands that his next move could force them into the open. Instead of charging straight toward the danger, Reacher takes a different approach. He keeps what he knows to himself and allows the people around him to think that he is still trying to understand the case. This gives him something valuable: time. And for Reacher, time can be more useful than a weapon. His next move is built around the clue he discovered earlier. Rather than treating it as the final answer, he uses it as bait. If someone is protecting that secret, they will eventually react when Reacher gets close to it. This creates a dangerous game where Reacher is waiting for one wrong move from the person on the other side, but the situation becomes even more serious when the people connected to the case begin feeling the pressure. Reacher's investigation is starting to affect everyone around him. Some characters may want to help him, while others may have reasons to keep their distance. The problem is that Reacher cannot afford to trust someone simply because they appear to be on his side. This is also where episode 4 starts setting up the next major conflict. Reacher is getting closer to the person behind the mystery, but the enemy may already understand how Reacher operates. That means the usual tactics may not work this time. If the enemy knows Reacher will follow the evidence, they can use that against him. The biggest question becomes whether Reacher is actually hunting his enemy or walking into another carefully prepared trap. Every step forward could reveal another secret, but every step could also put him closer to serious danger. And then Reacher makes the choice that could change everything. He decides that the only way to expose the truth is to force the hidden players to react. He is no longer waiting for answers to come to him. He is creating a situation where someone has to show their hand. That decision gives the ending of episode 4 a much stronger impact. Reacher may not have every answer yet, but he finally understands the shape of the enemy's plan. And once Reacher understands the game, the people behind it have a serious problem. because they may have expected Reacher to investigate. They may even have expected him to fight what they may not have expected is Reacher turning their own plan against them. As episode 4 closes, the biggest mystery is no longer whether Reacher will discover the truth. It is what happens when he finally confronts the person who has been hiding it, and if the clues are pointing in the right direction. Episode 5 could begin with Reacher closer to the real enemy than anyone realizes. By the end of episode 4, one thing becomes clear. Reacher is no longer dealing with a simple mystery. The events of this episode push him closer to a truth that could change the entire direction of the season. Every clue, every suspicious move, and every hidden connection now feels more important because Reacher has finally started seeing the bigger picture. The most interesting part is that Reacher still does not have every answer. He has pieces of the puzzle, but there is still something missing. That missing piece could explain who is really behind everything and why they went to such extreme lengths to keep the truth hidden. This gives the story another layer because Reacher is not just trying to stop someone. He is trying to understand the reason behind the entire plan. Episode 4 also shows why Reacher is such a dangerous person to have against you. He does not need a perfect plan from the beginning. He adapts when things change. When one path becomes a trap, he looks for another. When someone tries to hide information, he pays attention to what they are not saying. That makes it difficult for his enemies to know what he will do next. But the danger has not disappeared. In fact, it may be getting worse. Reacher's investigation has reached a point where the people involved can no longer ignore him. If they realize exactly how much he knows, they may decide that the safest option is to remove him before he can expose everything that creates the perfect setup for episode 5. Reacher has made his move, but now the people behind the mystery have to respond. Will they try to run? Will they try to silence him? Or will they create one final trap designed specifically for Reacher? There is also the question of trust. After everything that happens in episode 4, Reacher has good reason to question the people around him. Someone who appears to be an ally could still be hiding information. And if Reacher discovers that one of the people closest to the investigation has been working against him, the next confrontation could become even more personal. So what is the real meaning of episode 4? It is the moment when Reacher stops reacting to the mystery and starts controlling the investigation. The enemy may still believe they have the advantage, but Reacher is already changing the rules, and that is what makes the ending so important. The real fight may not have started yet. Reacher has found the trail. He has identified the danger. Now he has to follow it all the way to the person who started this. And if episode 4 is any indication, the truth waiting at the end of that trail could be the biggest shock of the season.